Hello viewers of Whip, and I've got something different for the channel today. Have you ever heard of the game Magic the Gathering? I'll tell you right now, it's a card game. So, you're probably wondering, how am I going to get some footage of how I actually play this game? Well, I show to you now the program called Cockatrice. Yes, it's a program you can download for free where you can download the card database and make your own decks. So, here's mine right here. I like to call this one my Ulamog the Infinite Gyre Commander deck. Commander's a format where you can, basically, one of the legendary creatures is your general, and you build a deck complete around it. You can't use mana costs outside of it. Here I am on Cockatrice just playing a random game with two other random people who've got decks in that format. That's how great it is. Alright, so basically, here's the thing. Usually when you play Magic, you got your 5 colors: white, blue, red, black, green, and each kind of represents something, but doesn't matter, okay? There's a whole bunch of cards that you play. First you play your lands, and then with your lands you play your other things. So what I'm doing here is, we've rolled to see who goes first, and here is my general. He is 11 mana. Since this is a colorless deck, all my lands are colorless. He's a 10-10, or is he 11-11? Whatever, it says right there. He's indestructible, which means he can't be destroyed. Annihilator 4 means whenever he attacks, the defending player has to sacrifice that many permanents. Alright, let's draw my first hand. Let's see what we got here. We got Darksteel Forge. Silent Arbor is going to be a really good defense card. And a couple of lands. Well, it's going to be kind of tricky to play with this hand, but I mean, basically with this deck, I try to find artifacts that provide mana themselves and then kind of ramp everything else. So we're going to see how this goes, because this deck has a plan. And the plan is, basically my general is such a big thing that I could technically just play it as ramp that bugger out and then basically beat them to death. Because the thing is, even though you have 40 life in this game, if at any time you take 21 general damage, you just lose. Okay, from a single general though, you know. So, this guy who's an 10-10 I think, whenever he hits some, yeah, well basically if I can pump him up a bit, 2 hits should kill them. That's the crazy part. And Annihilator means they'll start removing all their permanents. That's no fun to win, though. There's a lot of different win conditions in this deck, and I'm just gonna see if I can show you guys who to play. Alright, so I'm playing against somebody using Teza, Orzhov Scion. That is a general that likes to sacrifice tokens, and I don't even know what Thalia is yet, because I haven't quite updated Cockatrice to include the latest set, Dark Ascension. I don't even know if it's out quite yet. The set has at least been fully visually spoiled, so I'll be able to Google up that in a moment. I'll worry about that when it becomes relevant, you know, when he plays it or when somebody wants something. We'll start off by playing a land and playing Brittle Effigy. Now what this card does is, when I get to 4 mana, you know, lands produce mana, first of all, if you don't know that much. This vid is going to be for people who really understand Magic already. I'm just showing you what this deck does, because I have a heck of a lot of fun with it. Anyway, yeah, my strategy with this game is, even though my general is basically a giant Cthulhu-esque god, here, let me just try and find what Thalia does in a minute, because this is going to be really important in a moment. Yeah, basically, since my general is that big, they will assume that I want to ramp him out. However, that's not the case. What I've noticed in EDH with this deck is, what I try to do is sit back, fortify myself to the point that I'm unstoppable, and then murder them. Yeah, basically, don't become noticed seems to be a real strong point here. Alright, especially if I have the Darksteel Forge in my hand. This is an artifact that costs a lot, but once it gets out there, indestructible means they can't destroy it. Now, in EDH, people presumably have some abilities that will remove things that are indestructible, such as my general, lots of crazy stuff, because the playing environment, what they call the metagame, understands that people are using crazy tactics like this. You know, that's what's so fun about it. You never know what's going to happen, and that's why this program here works a lot better than, say, actual real-life cards. Okay, here's what Thalia does. 2 mana for a 2/1 first strike, so she kills things first. Non-creature spells cost 1 more to play. Really? Really? That's her only ability, is making everyone else play a little bit harder. Well, I can tell right now, I suppose that's a tempo ability. If you can't play your stuff before everyone else, they've already got an edge on you. Sometimes it can be so simple, like, down to the wire, that basically, it's not so much the person who plays the most lands wins, but resources and ability. Yeah, look at that. It is every non-creature spell. Now, let's see here. What do I have for 2 mana in my hand? Scorched Ruins is a very tricky card. I mean, it'll create 4 on its own, but I've got to sacrifice 2 untapped lands to play it. And the thing with EDH is that people are planning for crazy lands that on their own do strange things. So, very likely they've got land destruction. And if you destroy a Scorched Ruins, I am absolutely messed up myself. Now, I do make a mistake here, actually, a bit later on. Here I am playing Defense Grid, which is a very good defensive artifact, and what I like about it is that it doesn't just help me, it helps everybody. Basically what it does is it makes every spell cost 3 more to play during each other person's turn. Now, a game like Magic, there are lots of instances of things you can play as instants. This thing, obviously, makes it so they're a lot harder to play. And in a game of Magic, you know, leaving a couple mana open to be able to play a spell later on, little tricky things like that, that's almost what it's all about, you know? Spells that'll search spells out of your deck for later, you just do that at the end of your turn, naturally, you know? Things to destroy other people's creatures, things to, you know, remove things from the game, crazy things like that. You know, just leaving yourself open to be able to have those kind of abilities is what it's all about. You never know what the other player has in your hand, you know? And if you do, that kind of knowledge is really important. Let me just see if anything's going on in the Magic Gathering room. You can see here on Cockatrice, there's lots of games going on right now, which is a great thing. But yeah, that defense grid, it's each player too. I mean, there's these things called counterspells, which all they do is stop other people's spells from being played, which is really versatile. That's one reason why that defense grid just works so well for a turn 2 spell. It's just bam, I've locked a certain aspect of the game out, pretty much, unless you've got ridiculous mana, and if you've got ridiculous mana, you're going to win anyway. And here he is playing an Extraplanar Lens. What this does is removes one of his lands from the game, and then each other land that has the same name as the land he removed now creates more mana. Now, he's playing with snow-covered plains for the specific reason of if someone else is playing white, well, they don't have the same land. It's a nice little way around it. Now, the funny thing is, here I am playing my Scorched Ruins, which is a very dangerous play. Like I said, if they destroy this, I've suddenly got no mana, and I'm set back 3 turns. Kind of bad, but now that I've jumped from 2 to 4, I can just tap this and play my next serious lockdown card, known as Silent Arbiter. One of my favorite cards in the deck. Also, I remember, I think it was my friend Adam that suggested this go in there. He's a 1/5 that basically locks down combat as long as he's in play. And this works so well, because this colorless deck, one of its weaknesses is there's not a lot of creatures in it, so it just gets defeated by swarm decks all the time. Like if my opponent is playing anything that just generates a ton of tokens, having one Silent Arbiter in play just changes the game to, oh, you're not actually winning. Because in Commander, there's a lot of different win conditions out there, but one of the more frequent ones seems to be just have a ton of stuff that gets really big. That one card there locks it all down, perfect. Defense Grid, locking down counterspells. I just love the colorless challenge. It's something I couldn't do in real life, because first of all, when you play Commander, all your lands have to... everything in the deck can't generate a color of mana or have a symbol in it that's a symbol other than your general's colors. Ulamog is colorless, and basic lands, even if it doesn't say it specifically on that white land up there, basically it's it would have on it tap to add a white to your mana pool. Now my general's not white, that means I can't have any basic lands in my deck at all. So basically, I'm playing in a 100-card deck where every single card in it has to be different, including the extra handicap of every single one of my lands has to be different. But to me, it's just a wonderful challenge, because after I search through with Cockatrice, because I've got all the cards in the database, everybody does, but it's the way you build it, really, because every single land has its own special ability, and these special abilities can become relevant later on, and it's amazing when, like, you know, you might have something like Hall of the Bandit Lord, which is like, I mean, it comes into play tapped, so I'd consider removing it, but if, you know, that specific land actually will give a creature haste. And the thing with that is, haste means a creature can attack the same turn as it came into play. I forgot I didn't set my life total to 40. But anyway, yeah, attacking with a creature the first turn it comes into play is just like, kaboom! You know, they don't expect it, right? Especially if it doesn't have it on the creature yet. My general here, Ulamog, you know, like I said, pretty much 2 hits and you're dead is a crazy thing to think of, even though he, you know, takes a while to get out. So if I've got that land, well, one of those hits comes out of... Oh, he's got a Ghostly Prison. Okay, this is a really good card that I've gotten in another one of my gimmick decks that I hope to show off later, just because I have a lot of fun with it. But Ghostly Prison basically means you've got to pay mana if you want to attack him. Alright, so I've drawn another land, which is good. Alright, other cards in my hand right now, I'm really wondering about how I'm going to play this out, because, you know, my things now cost a bit more to play, thanks to Thalia. Yeah. So, I'd have to pay something for 5, because there's not a lot of creatures in this deck, right? And there's no point to attack with Silent Arbiter. He's got 5 defense, though. So he's a pretty solid blocker on his own, even without being anything else. Just those stats alone are pretty good for 4 mana. I mean, not in a game of Commander, because stuff does crazy abilities, but that's why he's great. And he hasn't been reprinted since Fifth Dawn, either, I don't think. Man, that's the great thing. Like I said, with this format, you pick one card, that's the center of your deck, you build the deck around them, and that's almost the fun part. I could choose... There's a few colorless generals I could use, but mainly I chose Ulamog because his other ability is, when you cast him, that's not come into play, that's cast him, so if you get countered, it still happens. When he gets cast, you get to destroy any target permanent you want. For those fluent in Magic the Gathering... Basically, that means he's a Vindicate on a stick. You know, and it doesn't matter. Vindicate means, you know, destroy any permanent. But the point of that is he's like a utility. He's a lot of mana. He's an indestructible, you know, scariness thing. But I like to use him as a blocker, mainly, because there's a lot more interesting ways to win this game than just beat them down with my general. But if it happens, right? I won't shirk a win condition if it's there. I just really love the times when it's not straight up like that. I mean, yeah. So basically, I kind of use him as a long-term game, you know, not only win condition, but as an answer. Because in this game, answers are very important. If I'm facing something that looks like a combo deck, and, you know, I just need that one turn to break it before they hit infinite turns, you know, just having that general there. Because the thing is, if you play your general and he dies, he gets sent back to your commander zone, you see. And he costs 2 more. Well, my guy's already 11. What's 2 more? If I've generated that much mana, obviously I'm going to be able to play him again somehow. So basically, he's like an answer that doesn't go away, you know, to me. And a great blocker for when, like, that one guy is breathing down your neck. And he's indestructible. I mean, he's great. Okay, now what's going on here is he's just played a creature that gave him 3 more. An Intangible Virtue, that enchantment right there, makes them each a little bit bigger. I'm going to be trying to scroll over cards as I'm going through this, so I can really explain to you what they do. Now, I've got my land that I drew, Vesuva. This comes into play tapped as another, as a copy of any land on the battlefield. There's a couple of options I have for that. One of which I'm thinking about right now, which is probably a terrible idea, is having it come into play tapped as another copy of Scorched Ruins, sacrifice my other 2 lands, and suddenly, bam, I've got 8. That's really going, you know, kamikaze. You know, it's quite a bad idea, especially when Thalia is already in play. I don't know how I'm getting rid of her. But again, in Commander, think about it like this. Your opponents can be as much as a resource as everything else. Like, if I can get those 2 guys to fight amongst themselves, you know, I might just be on top, you know? And especially since I have, there we go, I'm dropping a Voltaic Key here. I mean, it costs a little bit more. And since I don't have the artifacts that generate mana, it does absolutely nothing right now. In fact, since Brittle Effigy you see here is an answer, since I've left Scorched Ruins open. I can, you know, always, like, don't leave yourself vulnerable. Right now, anytime I want, I can just exile a creature. And exile is pretty much another word for remove something from the game. Okay, he's playing... Okay, now it makes sense why he used Springjack Pasture to create a goat token. He sacrificed it for this card, so he could pick any card from his deck and get it. You know, it's a very good idea. I was wondering why. I mean, making a goat isn't so bad. I've got Springjack Bastard in this deck just for that purpose, you know? You never know when you want a 0-1. But my point here is I dropped Voltaic Key here rather than dropping nothing because I want to give them an idea that I haven't quite drawn what I wanted to yet, which is true, but, I mean, I'm not an open target, right? I've got the Brittle Effigy to remove anything they try to attack me with. So obviously, they won't want to. And I've got my Silent Arbiter out, which is technically helping Joseph, because he doesn't have any creatures, but he's not going to get attacked by 6 people. Unfortunately, he's got that Kitkin guy up there that, you know, gets a power boost if things are untapped, pretty much. I've got Mindslaver here in my hand, which takes control of another player's turn. That is a wacky card, which will actually pretty much sway games. As a, well, not quite a last resort, but it does do some terrible things end game. Think about it. If I took over somebody's turn, I could force him to attack the other player, leave himself wide open, maybe even sacrifice some things and mess him up with his own game, you know? Some cards, you know, sacrifice things to gain more abilities. Well, if you sacrifice other things that they'd want to have, you can do messed up things. But anyway, Mindslaver's like a late game card, and I don't really know if that's going to come into play this game or not, but it's nice to have. I'm not going to complain too much. There's a big random element when you think about Commander, and that's what makes it so wonderful, really. Think about 99 cards, and every land is different. So I just love this deck for that reason. You never know what's going to happen. There's a couple of plans you have in mind from the start, but first of all, again, what is key with this deck here that I've built is be under the radar, kind of do your own thing, because, you know, you don't want to get too much notice in a multiplayer game, or suddenly you've got every player ganging up on you. And here, he's pointing to Defense Grid, proving that even if he wanted to, Joseph, because of my card, cannot stop this oncoming attack. Which, I mean, he's playing black, right? Presumably there's lots of ways to kill creatures and wipe the board and stuff like that, especially when he's got white. He's played another card that I don't quite get, I think. Let's see what Increasing Devotion does. I'm going to download Dark Ascension right after this so I can understand what the cards do. Okay, what's this do? Gets 5 human creature tokens, and then if you pay the flashback cost to play it from your graveyard, you get 10 instead. You know what? That's a really solid white sorcery spell from Dark Ascension. It's funny, now that I look at it, I'm playing against Teza, who I've always thought was a really good, you know, token strategy deck, and Thalia, who is also tokens. So I'm playing colorless challenge against 2 kind of token decks, which is fine. I mean, it's still a lot of variety. I like how his extra planar lens so far hasn't benefited the other player, though, because, again, I've got no basic lands whatsoever, so there's no way I'd ever get anything out of that. Alright, it's my turn. Let's see what I draw. Oh gosh, Blinkmoth Urn. This is a beautiful card. I'm going to tell you right now. This thing gives me mana every turn before my first main phase when I play stuff, based on the number of artifacts I have. Now remember, everything in the deck except lands is an artifact, because I'm playing colorless, right? Well, most of them. There are some colorless creatures in here, but we'll get to that if I get them, such as my general. So I'll tap all my mana to be able to play it, because he's got Thalia, and I'll drop Blinkmoth Urn. The funny thing is, this will actually help the other players too, because they've got artifacts. And generally, in a multiplayer game, helping your enemies is a bad thing, but at the same time, this helps me a lot more than them, so any benefit that they would get is just kind of like a mind trick on my part, right? They don't want to destroy it because it might help them a little bit. My hand, though, this is an engine. Okay, Blinkmoth Urn doesn't need to be untapped. Even if it did, I've got the key. That's not going to come up. That Voltaic Key is just kind of sitting there. If I draw something else, it'll help. I don't care. Whatever. Right now, it actually is generating mana for me now that I think about it, because the urn affects things. And here I am just telling him, by the way, you got an extra mana because of the urn, because people forget, you know? They forget that the urn helps people. And actually, by reminding him that it's helping him, maybe he'll be less likely to destroy it, you know? And any part of my plan that goes unhindered is a successful plan in my books. I don't know who's going to win right now. Like I said, when it comes to Commander, also known as Elder Dragon Highlander for when they made the format, and it was made by the players. It isn't a tournament thing, but it's one of the funnest ones I can see because of the variety and because you can build whatever the heck you want, and it's got creativity back in the game. And here we've just skipped ahead a bit. I'm sad I didn't catch it on video, but basically what happened is with the mana from Blinkmoth Urn, I pumped out Darksteel Forge, which makes all my mana indestructible, and then the turn later, Joseph plays Austere Command, which would have had, as one of the options he could have chose, destroy all artifacts, which would have just ended the game for me right there. Instead, he had to destroy all the tokens and the enchantments that the player above had to have, so that set him back instead of me. And here I am, having indestructible stuff. I then played Power Matrix, which will make Ulamog able to kill people in 2 hits, and Oblivion Stone, which, since my stuff is indestructible, my stuff will survive, but I'll be able to wipe absolutely everything that isn't a land if they do get it. Now, what's going on right here is he's just said in the comments that he's about to win the game. How? Well, before he had played Demonic Tutor, which is a staple in any black deck that will get any card in your deck, into your hand. Yawgmoth's Will is a card that's, again, another black staple, which allows you to play any card from your graveyard. Well, any cards in your graveyard, again. Okay? So basically, he's done it both to grab Summoning Station. He thinks he's got an infinite direct damage combo here with Blasting Station and Summoning Station. Basically, creates a creature, it dies, deals damage to us, kind of thing. But the problem is, for this to work, the activation is very specific. I only figured this out afterwards. Blasting Station will, I think, only untap if it's an artifact that goes to the graveyard, but the tokens Summoning Station creates are not artifacts. So, as that is, his combo that will cause him not to lose is gone. He gives up. With him gone, the other guy just decides to give up too. It's all really delicate, isn't it? Because technically I didn't kill them, but they both gave up because they couldn't stop what I had. It's funny. That's exactly how this deck works. I sit back, create an unstoppable position, and I guess I won. Thanks for watching, guys, and I might have a few just to show you what these crazy gimmick decks do, because I have a lot of fun with them. This is Cockatrice, and these are the decks that I build. See you next time if you keep watching. Whip says, see ya!